So you guys, I just introduced that. That's my name. As a disclaimer, this is educational. So if anyone's looking for one-on-one physical therapy, definitely reach out to me after. This is just supposed to be educational. So the core, those 4 muscle groups that I just mentioned include the transverse abdominis, the lumbar multifidi muscles, your diaphragm, and your pelvic floor. So the core itself, the functionality of it, I use this term, the hydraulic amplifier, and it sounds really fancy, but all that it means is that the core is equalizing pressures within your abdomen. So it's maintaining intra-abdominal pressure. So the purpose of maintaining this intra-abdominal pressure is to stabilize your spine, support the internal organs, and this balance just helps with efficiency of movement. These 4 muscle groups, they need to be working in synchrony to maintain that intra-abdominal pressure. If you think of your core like a soda can, you know, there's a top, there's a bottom, and then there's a front wall and a back wall that wraps around and connects with one another. If you were to poke a hole in the soda can, the soda would come out, right? Because the pressure, that internal pressure system is compromised because of the hole that you put in the can. So what can happen when the intra-abdominal pressure isn't balanced is dysfunction can occur. You can have back pain, you can have urinary incontinence. So for me, being a pelvic floor specialist also, or pelvic floor conditions being one of the diagnoses that I treat, the core is really important because if someone has a pelvic floor dysfunction, I need to also look at those other muscle groups because they need to be working in unison. So where are these muscles? So the transverse abdominis is the deepest muscle in your abdomen. So you see the cut through of the muscles. So most superficial, you'll see the 6-pack here, that's your rectus abdominis. Then you go a little bit deeper, you get into the external oblique. You go even deeper, you get into the internal oblique. And then at the deepest level there, you see the transverse abdominis. So the transverse, I'm just going to go to the next one because it's pretty much the same photo. So the transverse abdominis, it acts like a corset. It attaches all the way to the back of your spine and then wraps around to the front. And then there's fascial connections that run from your sternum all the way down to your pubic bone that help sew it together. But it is the deepest muscle and should be worked when you're doing core strengthening so that you can help to improve the whole system. So most people, they're like, oh yeah, abs, my 6-pack. But the 6-pack is more aesthetic, honestly, and the 6-pack itself, the rectus abdominis, it's more for global functional movement, like bending over, like big movements like that. But the muscle that needs to be working the hardest to keep everything together is your transverse abdominis. So that's the first muscle of your core. The next muscle is your diaphragm. So this muscle, if you think of it like a saddle, like a horse saddle, you see that shape of it, it's kind of like hanging over and there's 2 sides to it. This muscle is your main muscle for inspiration. It is the main muscle that should be working when you're taking your breaths in to bring the oxygen into your lungs, and then that whole system of the respiratory system works to transfer the oxygen to the muscles and into the blood and wherever else it needs it. So that's where your diaphragm is. So you see it's really right underneath your rib cage. I put this photo in because I feel like you can really appreciate like how far up it is, but we don't really think of it that way. So here's another photo. You see the rib cage, you see the diaphragm. It's literally underneath. It's like a dome here. There is a central tendon that you can see that attaches onto the spine itself. So there is a really intimate relationship of the diaphragm with the rib cage and the spine itself. This next photo, you see how it can expand. So as you're inhaling, the diaphragm expands, drops down, and then it fills with air. Then you exhale, it goes back up, and then the air is released. So that's the second muscle of your core. The third muscle your pelvic floor. I put this side view in so you could really appreciate, number one, that the transverse abdominis is a corset-like muscle, because you see it there in that purple. It looks like a corset to me. It really wraps around that whole abdominal area and attaches onto the back of the spine. You can see the diaphragm is that top. Can you guys see my little scrolly thing here?
Yeah. Yep.
So you see the diaphragm up top here. It's underneath that rib cage. The pelvic floor is a sling of muscles that runs from your pubic bone all the way back to your tailbone. And then the lumbar multifidi muscles, which we haven't spoken about yet. Those are these little guys that are in between the spinal segments in the back. They're deep also, so you typically can't palpate them. You can't touch them from the outside because they're so deep in, and there's other muscles layered on top. But this is that back fourth stabilizing muscle. So just a little bit more about the pelvic floor, because the pelvic floor I know is kind of like a no man's land for most people. You're like, what? Pelvic floor? So this is a view from the top. So we're looking down into a female pelvis, and you can see that hammock and that sling of muscles. You see how they attach onto the coccyx itself, just fanning all the way around. And so these muscles, they have sexual function, they have bowel and urinary function, so they're working in that essence, but they're also working to help equalize the pressure in your abdomen. So these muscles need to be at a status, there's like a baseline level of engagement that every muscle has to help equalize the pressure from the bottom. Otherwise, if you think of that soda can, if you have a hole in the bottom of the can, the soda's still gonna come out no matter where that hole is, or no matter what other walls are still intact. So next muscle, this is just another one. Someone's holding a pelvic model, and you can see inside and just appreciate the layers of the muscle. Mind you, they have taken out all of the organs, right? So we're just seeing muscles. Normally there's a bunch of organs here. So there would be the uterus, the bladder, we'd have the rectum, we'd have some of the sigmoid colon, which is the end of the intestines. That would all be in this space in here. But we're just looking at the muscles. So what's the importance of knowing the 4 muscle groups? I kind of already said this, and I'm noticing a typo now. So in order to strengthen your core, you have to activate all these muscles. When there's lack of coordination, dysfunction occurs. So if you're, hopefully when you're working with a therapist who's informed about this, they're targeting the 4 muscle groups so that you can have full return to function. But without the coordination, the back pain will likely continue, and symptoms like urinary incontinence will continue as well. So let's see. Okay, so recommended exercise. So we're gonna get into some recommended exercises now. So first thing that I always do in Pilates and in rehab is posture, right? So you have to know how you should be sitting, how you should be standing before you do any exercise at all. So we're going to get into that. We'll go through some diaphragm breathing, transverse abdominis activation paired with pelvic floor engagement, and we likely won't get into lumbar multifidi strengthening, so we'll probably just target those first 3 today. So give me a moment to unshare my screen so you can see me. Let's see if I can do this.
Yay.
Can you see me? I did it, yay, okay. So I'm gonna angle the camera down so you can see me. If everyone could be sitting in a chair, that would be great. And I'm gonna slide back to even more. So first thing first, we want to figure out our posture. Barry, Michelle, you guys know this, we've gone over this a few times, but it doesn't hurt to review again. So the first thing that you want to do is put your hands on your hips. Make sure that your feet are flat on the ground. Come towards the center or front edge of the chair. And you're just going to rock your pelvis forward and back. Try to really isolate the rock in your pelvis and not move the whole body so you can see Number one, if you can isolate it. And then number two, the difference between pelvic rock and the torso rock. Okay, and then you're gonna stop where you're on top of your sit bones. Your sit bones are those bony prominences that are right underneath your buttock, right underneath the butt cheek. You should be sitting right on top of them. Everybody there? Yeah, okay. So now you're going to rock that position very slightly, like 10 degrees forward. And what you'll feel is you'll feel a change in the muscle tone in your pelvic floor. So you want to find and feel that change and stay there. Okay, so we got our pelvis. Your feet should be flat on the ground. Knees should be 90 degrees. Next thing, rib cage. If you put one hand on the front of your rib cage, one hand on, other hand on the back, imagine that your rib cage is a package that you just got in the mail, and just tilt the package forward, tilt the package back, and then try to level out the package and feel like your rib cage, aka the package, is right over your pelvis. Once you get there, bring your hands back down onto your thighs, roll your shoulders back and down. Good. And then just bring your head back in space because you want to make sure that your head is stacked on your spine. Great. So as we're here, the bottom of our chin is parallel to the floor. All right, so how many people sit like this normally? No. Yeah. So, and that is a common thing. So take this information and try to implement it into how you're sitting, because most of us are sitting more than usual nowadays anyway. But don't be discouraged if you find yourself like this. It's normal to move out of this home base, but just consider this a home base and try to always come back to it. Okay, so our hands are here. We're gonna go into some diaphragmatic breathing. You're gonna bring your elbows and inner arms in towards your waist. Good. And you're gonna take a big inhale through your nose and feel the expansion in your rib cage outward into your arms. And then exhale through your mouth, let all the air out. Again, inhale through your nose, feel that expansion outward. And then exhale, let all the air out. Good. Let's make it an audible exhale now. So you'll make a mirror fogging breath. That will sound like, okay? Inhale, expand, and exhale. Do that one more time. Inhale, and exhale. Good. Now we're gonna bring our hands onto our belly. So remember the diaphragm, it's a full cylinder underneath the entire rib cage, so you want to be able to activate different parts of the diaphragm. You're going to take an inhale, expand, your belly can protrude just a little, and then exhale, make an S hissing noise like a snake. Do that 3 more times. That's okay, Jeannie, don't worry. 2 more times. Inhale. And exhale. Notice if you feel a change in the muscle tone under your hands. Inhale. And exhale. Good. Now bring your hands to rest down. Just do that 2 more times at your own speed and see if as you're exhaling, you can feel that deep core transverse abdominis muscle activate. So you're going to inhale and exhale. You can use the mirror fogging breath if you like that better. 1 more time. Really feel that deep muscle pulling in. If you don't feel it, don't worry. It takes time to figure that out. But it's the same feeling as if you were to cough and you feel the muscle there flicker, or if you're trying to put a pair of pants on that are too tight, say the day after Thanksgiving, and you eat too much, and you're trying to put those pants on and you're sucking your belly in, that's your transverse abdominis working, because it's that deep corset muscle. So now, how do we get the pelvic floor engaged? As a disclaimer, if you have any pelvic floor dysfunction, you don't have to do this recommended cue that I'm about to give, because you don't want to flare up anything, but everyone or whoever wants to follow doesn't have any pelvic floor dysfunction, please feel free to do this. So as you exhale and you do the deep transverse abdominis activation, I want you to also think of lifting in the pelvic floor muscles. So you'll feel an engagement in between the tailbone and the pubic bone, those muscles there. It will slightly lift up off of your seat, right? So try that again. Inhale, exhale, the pelvic floor lift and the abs pull in. And it might even feel stronger when you do the pelvic floor. Inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale and exhale. Okay, now we're going to progress that diaphragm, pelvic floor, and transverse abdominis engagement. I want you to put your hands on the sides of the chair. You're going to come towards the edge of the seat, still keeping your ideal posture. Take an inhale through your nose. Exhale, pelvic floor and low ab engagement. You're going to lift the right leg up to about bottom rib height and then lower back down. Inhale, exhale, lift the left leg up and lower down. Good. Keep your shoulders down away from your ears. You can really put the hands further behind your hips if you want so that you get that chest opening too. Inhale, exhale, feel your abdominals engaged. Lift the right leg up, lower down. Inhale, exhale, lift the left leg up and lower down. Okay. I'm going to challenge everyone with this now. We are going to add in a little bit of a twist in your spine. So keep your hands back where they were. Inhale through your nose. Exhale, lift the right leg up and then rotate toward the right side. Come back to center, lower the leg down, and let's repeat that on the other side. Inhale, exhale, engage in your pelvic floor and your transverse abdominis. Rotate to the left, come back to center, and lower down. How you guys doing?
Okay.
Do you feel your abdominals working? Yeah. Okay, good. If you feel your hip flexors working, that's the front thigh area. Think of just engaging even more in those abdominals, and it's possible that you might need to shift your weight back onto the hands just a little bit. We're going to do one more set on each side. Inhale, exhale, engage, lift the right leg up, rotate to the right, come back to center, and lower the leg down. Last time on the left. Inhale, exhale, engage in your abdominals, lift that left leg up, rotate towards the left, come back to center, and lower down. Good. Now we're going to do one final exercise for our core. I want you to turn to the side in your chair. Okay. And so same thing, one hand's going to go behind and then one hand is just going to hold in the front. You're going to keep that length in your spine, just slightly hinge back, lift one leg up, put it down, and then the other. So this just allows you to do a little bit more of a march. Kind of hard to do the march, getting the core facing the front. Good. And so there's a whole variation and a whole progression to this. But these are some simple core exercises that you can do to just turn on your abs, your pelvic floor, and your diaphragm when you've been sitting for a long time. Okay, come back up. Come back to center. All right, any questions?
Could you review that, like list them quickly again, the ones like.
You want me to list the muscles again?
Like list the, we did.
List the exercises we did? Yeah, okay. So first, posture. You started with rocking the pelvis, finding your sit bones, going very slightly in front. Then from there, we found the rib cage. Your hands were on the rib cage. You imagine that the rib cage is a package. You take a few tilts. Then you try to hover the package right over your pelvis. Your hands come down, shoulders roll back and down, your head comes back in space, and then your chin should be parallel to the floor. We can definitely review this. If you want me to review this every time I see you, Jeannie, I can definitely review this if you want. But feel free, go ahead, write it down. So one more time, posture. Posture, we did pelvis, rib cage as the package, shoulders back and down, head back in space, chin is parallel to the floor.
Right.
Okay, and then we went into the diaphragmatic breathing variations. I had you bring your arms, the inner arms and elbows in towards your waist, focusing on breathing outward that way. And then we did hands on the belly. You did the mirror fogging exhale. You did the S hissing exhale to activate your transverse abdominis. Then from there, we tried to pair the transverse abdominis and the pelvic floor contraction. Again, I said if you have any pelvic floor dysfunction, obviously hold off on that. But because you'll probably need a one-on-one to make sure that you're doing it safely. And then we did seated marching using the exhale, transverse abdominis. We did the seated marching with the rotation to one side. And then we did the side sitting marching for your abdominals just to increase it even more. And there's a whole progression of ab exercises you can do in a chair. So we could obviously do more, but so Barry, was that informative?
Yes, it was great, Melanie, as always.
Okay.
Really, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So I just wanted to show you guys one more thing. I'm going to be cool again and share my screen. Let me figure this out. Okay, so, all right, so this is what we went over the first three. We didn't get to the lumbar multifidi strengthening. Obviously, like all of this is very foundational, what I'm teaching you, so it could get deeper than this. But here's some references, just because I wanted to put some research articles in there to reference. And just as a reminder, this Healthy at Home video chat, it's a free 30-minute chat, so it's open to everyone. I'm doing this every Monday and Friday at 10:30. It's kind of evolved, like Michelle and Barry can see that this has definitely evolved from the first week. So, and it's still evolving. So I always want to know what you guys want to learn and how I can give recommendations to help during this time, because we want to stay active and we want to stay healthy, even if we're at home for the most part. So there are also 2 Pilates virtual classes. I teach a beginner Tuesday at 11 a.m. class, and Amarantha, Dr. Amarantha Burkle, who's also a doctor of physical therapy like myself, she just started teaching a Wednesday 5:30 intermediate class. And then most of you know that I'm still doing all virtual PT evals, follow-ups, and Pilates sessions. So if you don't have my contact info, there it is. Brianna's on this call right now. She's helping me get more technological with it. So that's the Facebook and Instagram. We're trying to get with the times and update that